Latest Planet X, NIBIRU, Nemesis presidential elections, manipulation, Hurricane Matthew, weather wars, Florida, Marshall Masters, leak project. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Rex Bear, and we've got Marshall Masters with us today. Now, Mr. Masters has been researching Planet X and global cataclysms, earth changes for years. He is definitely at the forefront, and his website, YOWUSA.com, has a bounty of information for those that would like to look for possible alternatives of living in the Borg-type 9-to-5 society. He's got Surviving the Planet X Tribulation, In It for the Species, The Corn Bible, many other blogs and articles on his website. And we dive deep into the current events of today. Also, during this podcast, I'm going to show you several of the recent images of what people think could be Planet X or one of its satellites orbiting up there in space. And I hope you enjoy the presentation. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/clandestineTimeLord. Go to leakproject.com. If you become a contributing member at Leak Project, you'll have access to exclusive content, and contributions greatly benefit Leak Project. Also, pick up one of your high-quality vinyl decals today for $10. Wake people up and be the change you want to see. This is Rex Bear. Talk to you soon. Well, let's rock and roll. I appreciate you spending time with us again here. I know that you're super busy. You've got a lot going on. So if you would, what's your next adventure for our audience? I know you said you had something going on in Colorado.
Absolutely. I'm going up this weekend to Boulder, Colorado to do some Gaia interviews with George Noory.
Oh, that's great. I certainly love it out there. The elevation takes a while to get used to, but if you can get acclimated to that, it certainly is a beautiful location.
It is. Well, I mean, Jennifer and I live at 5,000 feet, so it's pretty easy for us.
Oh, okay. So you guys are used to it already then.
That's right.
Great.
And I like it. Low humidity, comfortable weather.
Absolutely. And also, there's so much going on in the political landscape. You sent me a link to a video that the a minister of transportation or something essentially said that we could be, or the Anunnaki and Zecharia Sitchin was correct.
Yeah. Now, we don't know about the translation, and that would have to be vetted, but we are seeing where folks are coming out of the woodwork and they just want to step forward and say something so their family doesn't look at them when it happens and goes, "You knew all about it, why didn't you say something?" They're conscious. To me, it's all theater. What's important is what I'm actually seeing. I'm working on my next Planet X system update. Last one I did was last year, so people are going, it's about time, Marshall. And, I was just busy writing my book, Surviving the Planet X Tribulation. And it's just amazing what I'm seeing. There's a consistent pattern in all the good stuff. And trust me, there's a lot of hoax and garbage stuff. But the good stuff is pretty consistent. We're seeing an object out to the 3 o'clock on the sun.
I've noticed a lot of images and video footage of that location, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just got one today from a farmer in Spain, and he was coming back in the evening from the fields with his employee, his farmhand, and they saw two objects in the sky. They saw the sun and another object to the right of it. And he pulled over and took pictures, sent me a sequence of 10 of them. I'm going to put it in my next video. And, so it's starting to become more and more visible. And at some point, it's just going to exceed the deniability factor. And, I think we're going to see a lot of people step out of line, so to speak, go off the reservation and say, yeah, it's real. I've known about it. Uh, and we'll see how that goes.
And also, there was some footage I saw the other day that, I mean, it looked pretty compelling because you could see the flare go in and out of the clouds. It was in Brazil. I've heard both sides of the coin on that. One person said that it was lens. With that being said, I think that you mentioned also that it is actually referred to not as NIBIRU, but as Hercubolus.
Well, that's another name. Hercubolus is another name for NIBIRU. NIBIRU is the name that was given to it by the ancient Sumerians, and that's for the outermost planet in the Planet X system. And the other two planets are Boda and Helion. And so, you're talking about the Brazil imagery, and I'm going to be delving into this with very detailed analysis. I've looked at the debunkers, and I think that they're withholding information and they're being misleading in their attacks. And I'm going to document that very carefully, step by step, in my video.
And also this new video that you're coming out with, I also know you're coming out with a new book as well. What is the focus going to be on your new work?
Well, I mean, the video, I'm really getting into two things. I'm doing a lot of analysis, and I want to show people how they can debunk the debunkers and also deal with the hoaxers. There's a lot of hoaxers out there. The debunkers are really serving an evil purpose because for them, it's all about agenda. There's no pursuit of the truth. A good cynic is pursuing the truth. And a good cynic is someone I dearly admire, and I love working with them because for them, it's not about being right. It's about getting it right. But with these debunkers like Dazza the cameraman, they just simply have an agenda. And they're going to do anything to push their agenda and take cheap shots. They're going to trivialize things, dismiss things without actually looking at the evidence and going through it. And what I'm going to do in my videos, I'm going to take people through it. I want them to understand how they're being hoodwinked and misled by paid disinformationalists and these agenda-driven debunkers who, whether they do it wittingly or wittingly doesn't make any difference. Luciferian agenda that's really going to cause a tremendous amount of loss of life.
Another thing too that I noticed, Marshall, is it seems like this new storm that's really taken force close to Florida. It's the Hurricane Matthew. If you just type in hurricane in Google, or if you not hurricane, but if you type in elections, the first thing that comes up is how hurricanes have disrupted and defined past elections.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, is this some type of HARP-like creation to maybe divert the elections because of the possibility of what's to come, and they might want to clamp down martial law or something like that? I've heard of a lot of chatter, but I don't know what to expect because every 4 years, the elections, there's all sorts of information that comes out there.
Well, I think that Matthew is probably more the result of chemtrail spraying than anything else. This is a really serious storm. It's going to cause a huge amount of damage. It's taken life already. This thing's going to plow right up the coast of Florida into the eastern seaboard, and it could possibly whip right around and come back and do it again. I think that chemtrail, and I call it chemtrail. I know we're supposed to call it geoengineering, which to me is the bastards that are doing this are deciding how the conversation is going to be held. And, you say it is chemtrailing to somebody, they go, oh, I groped that. And then you say geoengineering, and they go, wow, is that kind of like a new car from Germany or something,
Right.
And they don't know.
Is that a turbo diesel?
Is that turbo? Yeah. Give me the turbo model. And, what they're doing is that they're modifying. It is geoengineering. And actually, that's not even the right term for it. They should call it terraforming, because that's what they're doing. And they're literally changing the world. And what they're doing is disrupting the natural balancing forces of the planet's weather systems. And, they've been doing it. I think that there's any number of agendas. It's when you look at this stuff, it's like an onion, organic onion. Every time you peel a layer, you just cry some more. And that's about the best way to look at it. So, is this involved in some sort of political aim? Who knows? But one thing is patently clear in my mind is that storms like these are exacerbated by the climate engineering that they're doing. Because, the Earth's natural systems are being tampered with. This is just going to get worse, and it's going to get out of control, and no good is going to come from it. But again, I'm looking really at what's in the sky, what people are reporting, and I really don't think we're all that far away from a time when everyone's looking up in the sky going, uh-oh, that's going to leave a mark. And when that happens, it's a total game changer.
And I also wonder if the currency, the way that we're going right now, just trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. I read an article that said somebody came out, an insider said that we were $6.5 trillion in debt, or the Pentagon or somebody with the Pentagon came out and said that. So I did a bunch of research and I tried to find a credible source, but I just found a bunch of conspiracy websites that I don't know if there's any shred of evidence or if it's just a rehashed article that's been added to from 20 years ago, 5 years ago, etc. But I do know that September 11th, or the day before, just prior to September 11th, I think it was a few days prior, Rumsfeld came out and said that there was over $2 trillion missing in the Pentagon. So I am starting to think of the possibility. A lot of people are saying they can feel in their bones that something's going to happen. And maybe everything's kind of intertwined with the possibility of the return of Planet X. That way everything can fall like a box of cards, a set of dominoes, just bang, 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 and people are going to be in shock and awe. They're not going to know what to do unless they're prepared.
Well, it could be that, or it could just simply be a case of they're slapping the Band-Aids on as fast as they can, and at some point, when they decide they're going to go to ground, to hell with it, they throw away the box of Band-Aids and we're on our own. And I think that's going to be more the case. I think right now, they're more interested in keeping things going forward than blowing things up. Because if they blow things up, that requires assets and resources to deal with. It's a drain. And I think they would much rather wait until they go to ground, at which point they're not going to care what happens. And all of the shell games that they're playing, all the machinations, that'll stop. And then that's when things really collapse, and they collapse hard. And there's going to be nobody to take the fall except the little guy. I mean, I bank with Wells Fargo. And, I call in and they're going, if you were calling about our new problem with the law over in Los Angeles, they're getting nailed because they cooked the books to increase their stock prices. All right. So that's just another example of the nonsense that they're doing, this Band-Aid approach to just keeping things going along. and not creating a crisis that's going to detract from what their plans are.
Let me jump in real quick because I worked with somebody for several years that was a vice president for one of the Federal Reserve branches in San Antonio. And I got into debates with him oftentimes about, it's kind of funny, Marshall, because this was back in 2011 when I was a lot more gung-ho and really on the, I guess you could say, how do I put it, the right-wing side of just conspiracies, like, okay, man, we got to get ready. They could hit the kill switch at any time. You're drinking genetically modified E. coli feces in your Diet Coke. You shouldn't heat that thing up in plastic in the microwave because bisphenol A is in it. You know, I was warning people about everything all the time and just expecting the worst all the time, and I think I was feeding that system more than actually helping people. But we would get into debates a lot about the currency, and I would say to him, well, there's not a whole lot of people at the top levels that control these finances. And he says, no, that's not true. There's so many people involved in the Federal Reserve and banking institutions, etc., that the economy isn't going to collapse like a lot of people think it will. Even though there's trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in derivatives and fiat currency, and we're always going to be in debt because the way that the system works is just continual debt. You'll never really get out of debt. He says they're just going to keep printing more money, keep adding more zeros, and that's the way it's going to be. And nobody's really going to do anything about it. I mean, you're going to have small pockets here and there, but nobody is, as a whole, I should say, not nobody, but as a whole, people aren't going to do anything about it because they're going to be comfortable enough to live their life. And unless something really serious happens, then it's not going to change. It's going to be a slow boil, and people aren't going to realize what's going on.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, that was really good. I was enjoying that. Yeah, you were cooking there, babes. His assessment is right. They've got it manipulated, but the thing is, well, if people are, having a cushy enough of a life, now I wouldn't say for the average person in the United States, I don't think it's cushy. I think it's a lot more difficult. We're getting steady increases in health care. Rents are going up. All kinds of things are going up. Wages, forget about it. It's a sinkhole. And I don't care about the happy nonsense we hear. Oh my gosh, the economy's doing this and the economy's doing that, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful for the mega rich, but for the average schmo, it's no good. What I see really reminds me a lot more of the Soviet system. And, they understood that all they basically had to do was make sure people had enough bread, potatoes, and cigarettes and vodka, and life would go on. But it was also something very draining for the economy. And they had their grandiose aims, and they were sucking the economy bone dry, and it collapsed. It couldn't take the pressure. We have a pressure kettle situation going on here where it's getting increasingly difficult. It's, I don't know if you're on Obamacare, but for folks that are, it's turning into a real nightmare. The premiums are skyrocketing, as are the deductibles. And I mean, it's getting to a point where, frankly, what's the advantage of having it? I mean, it's turned into heart attack insurance. And because it's really not about health care. They're more of catastrophic policies, unless you're, really digging into your pocket and going for the upper premiums. There's no cost control on it. And the thing about Obamacare and this overall thing in our healthcare system where it's for profit. I mean, when I grew up as a kid, when I was a young man, you would go to the Catholic hospitals or the Jewish hospital or Methodist hospital. They were nonprofit. Blue Cross was nonprofit. You had an insurance card that when you put it down on the counter, you just didn't worry about it. You focused on getting well because the insurance company would handle it. Okay? And today, it's like walking into a casino with slots that pay 2%. You know,
Right.
you just keep pulling the handle and going deeper. Right now, the majority of people taking bankruptcy in the country are doing it because of a health crisis, and they had health insurance going into it. And they still wound up having to take bankruptcy because you got these companies that are going, well, this is not covered, this is not allowed. They start pulling these arcane rules out of nowhere. Now, what is the point of this whole deal? Well, what they did when they created Obamacare, and Obamacare is a bag boy for the elites, period.
Right.
I saw it when they set it up originally because they didn't have any cost controls. And the minute I could see they didn't have cost controls, and the Republicans can snort and stomp, but, when they passed legislation for Medicare drug bill, which is very, very expensive, they didn't allow Medicare to collectively bargain for drugs. They had to pay full retail. Every other country in the world is out there negotiating the price of their drugs, and we're paying full pop. And we're paying a heck of a lot more at the wholesale level.
Let me say one thing real quick to that, Marshall. Obamacare website costs exceed $2 billion study fines, and this is on Bloomberg.
Yeah. But the whole point of Obamacare is that forget about the whole argument about insurance and health, okay? Obamacare is an engineered money siphon. It is pulling money out of the economy in prodigious amounts. And it is going into the handful of a few people, the big elites that own these corporations. And we have money going into other places we don't even know. And what's the point of it? Well, they're using Obamacare to finance their underground bunkers in cities. Every time you use Obamacare, you are contributing to an underground bunker for which you will never know where it is or ever be invited. Forget the Golden Wonka tickets. That's out. So this is a siphon scam. They're siphoning the money out of the economy to do it because, after all, there's only so many $10,000 toilet seats you can buy.
I just don't understand.
That's what it's all about.
How could they spend that kind of money on a website? It blows my mind. I mean, are they paying the people that put the web developers $50,000 an hour, and do they have 1,000 of them running 24 hours a day? I mean, just think about that money. $2 billion for a website? Hello, that's crazy.
It's more than crazy. I mean,
it's like a country.
It's a country. I was in the computer industry before I retired and went into publishing in Planet X. And I was a senior systems analyst and technical writer. And one of the projects I did with Oracle was a big system for the government, a payroll system. And that wasn't $2 billion, it was a few $1,000,000. I mean, that was typically what you saw with these projects. And a website that doesn't work costs $2 billion. You know the money is being siphoned into areas you have no idea of. All right. I mean, it's like when you hear people say things like the Clintons took a lot of the money that was aid relief for Haiti and they funneled it into their, to our operations, it makes you think, maybe there is something to that. And again, all of this is about just skimming the money, squeezing people. Look, in their eyes, okay, We're the Walking Dead. They've already figured out how to make that happen. That's the Luciferian agenda. They want as many of us to die as possible because their aim is to maintain their control of the planet. As far as it goes for us, they don't see us as human beings. We're mullet. Gullible mullets at that. That's how they view us. Useless eaters. And, fine, they trim our numbers down to more manageable scale. No problem. You need more of us? Give us some wine and Viagra. We'll do wonders. So that's what this is all about. Obamacare is simply a money siphon. And it was all theater. That's all it was. Because in the final analysis, there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats. They're all going in the same direction because they're all financed by the same people.
Did you watch the debate?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Is that really the best that we could come up with? I'm watching both of them. I'm like, okay, Trump is over there. Hillary was like, okay, well, you said you wanted to go blow up Iran because their boats were getting too close to ours, and that would have caused a nuclear war. And he's like, no, it wouldn't. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then every time Hillary, she would make a comment, or when he would make a comment, she would look and she would just smile. And the smile on her face, it reminded me of one of those creatures out of V.
I know. To be honest with you, I sat through the whole debate, and in the back of my mind, I kept hearing the same thing again and again. Remember John Belushi in Animal House?
Yes.
Food fight! Food fight!
Classic.
Oh, man. The whole debate to me was, oh my God, can we just start over? It just was, they should have had it out in a recreation yard or something. It would have been more appropriate.
It was just silly. Yeah. And the stuff they were talking about was so ludicrous, and the different topics that they used to keep the people just engulfed in fear. It's, even back when John Kerry was running for president, and they were talking about how we just had to worry about North Korea and Iran because they're going to get nukes and they're going to blow us up. And it just blows my mind that people will put fear into that. And when reality, there's a lot more, out there that we should probably be concerned about versus North Korea or, just this retarded stuff that they throw in our faces.
Yeah. And so it's all, to me, it's just all theater, and it's distracting because in the final analysis, I know what's coming down the pike, and all of this is just going to, it's going to flush, and that's it. We're going to, once the Planet X system tribulation begins, this stuff's all going to collapse. And it's not because we have a fiat currency. All right. People will work and live with that as long as they can figure out how to keep the lights on and some, meat and potatoes on the table. And you made that point very well. But where they're really deficient is they've lost the faith of the people. That's the reason why it's going to collapse. For the very same reason that, when Rome was ascending, fathers would say to their sons, "Come home with your shield or on it. Go out and serve Rome." Right. And now, finally, when the barbarians were invading, they just stood aside because they were looking at the barbarians, and then they were looking at the crooked politicians in Rome, and they couldn't figure out who was worth dying for. So, the barbarians came through and they went, Rome that way, Rome that way. All roads lead to Rome. Just take one, just keep going south. And so that is, that's the big kicker. And what I see happening once things really start to pop with the tribulation is that, first off, Washington, D.C. is going to cease functioning as the nation's capital because it's going to be underwater. And they're going to be in their, they're going to be in their bunkers, wherever they're at. And they're going to want to run things on top. And that's going to work for as long as they can take goods and produce and so forth out of their underground cities and ship it up to the surface to the people working for them. But once the earth movements start tearing up their cities underground and their bunkers and their shelters, their ability to do that is going to be severely impacted. And, these are not the kind of people that encourage folks through service to others. I mean, you look at the Nuremberg trials of the Nazis, and in the final analysis, these were all pathetic, small people who had no sense of self, really. All they lived for was position and income, wealth. And they would do whatever, say whatever, and they didn't care. And that's who you have. And so, these people are not going to stick to it, keep faith with their overlords and all that. They're going to scatter. You're going to wind up with fiefdoms and warlords and things like that. They'll take the resources and go bug out on their own. In terms of when we're looking at layers of federal and state, it's going to come unglued, and it's really going to be sad, because if Planet X were coming through and we had a government like we did going into World War II that had the popular support of the people, and guys that put their lives on the line, women too, and these folks, they believed in it. They believed in the country. They believed in what we had. What we have now is our country's been stolen. And that's pretty much how a lot of people see it. And, there are a lot of folks that at the local level, all right, and I'm talking about law enforcement, paramedics, folks that are what I call the county level. They're looking at this nonsense that's coming in from above them. And they really don't like being tainted by all the corruption. And they are being tainted by the corruption because the people are seeing these special interests that have a rapacious greed for whatever they seek, and a government that says, hey, would you want seconds? Do you want seconds? And what happens is that, as the old saying goes, when a fish stinks, it stinks from the head down. And so the average guy, the average cop on a beat, is sitting there and saddled with this legacy of mistrust by the people for their government. They don't like that. That's, it's not what makes them tick. They do their jobs. Most of them are really good people. Everything is like families. You always have a loving aunt, a stern uncle, and a cousin who likes to hack people to death with a chainsaw out in the backyard. And you're going to have that in any government. But so what I see happening is that as things start to grind down, you're going to see local law enforcement, local government step up to the plate, and they're going to take care of their own. We're not going to turn into this, all these little banana republics out here, these little corrupt fiefdoms. I think that our country has enough moral fiber that for most of us, it's not going to go that way. Do you have counties, in different states where, it's really kind of a fiefdom? Of course. So you have to look at things on balance, but still the same. I think that you're going to find once there's a breakdown and nobody can get a paycheck, nobody can get the goodies, that people who are in the service, public services sectors, first responders, what they're going to do is they're going to align themselves with survival communities. And they're just going to keep doing what they're doing now, which is being in service. And I think that's going to be a good thing. And that's the reason why in my book, Surviving the Planet X Tribulation, it's a faith-based leadership guide. And I actually am trying to explain to them, okay, here's how you interact with these people. All right. And I'm getting, some of the folks that are diehard Planet X enthusiasts are reading my book and they just go, oh, there's no me and my planning strategy in here. They want punchy stuff that entertains them. I didn't write the book to entertain those people. I wrote the book for folks that are, 45 to 65 mostly, been in awareness in many cases since they were children. They got big hearts, small wallets, and families that think they're as crazy as peach orchard boars. And they're isolated. They're alone. They don't have the money to go out and build a $500,000 underground survival luxury condominium and stockpile it. And, for years I've been hearing from them, what's the point of my awareness if I can't afford bullets, beans, and bunkers? And what I'm trying to do is to explain to them that their survival doesn't have a damn thing to do with money. Nothing. It has nothing to do with money. And because, they're in this paralysis situation. They don't have money. Their families are opposed to what they're trying to tell them. They're seeing the future. They're seeing the pain that's going to come. And they're measuring their lives in terms of what they do not have, because that's what our society teaches us to do. You do not have the newest car. You do not have the biggest house on the block. You do not have the best job. You do not have the sexiest spouse. You do not have the fame. You do not have this. You do not have that. So go out and buy some. All right. That's our consumer society. We measure ourselves by what we do not have as opposed to what we do have. And what I am really trying to do, Rex, is I'm trying to get through to the people who are in awareness to explain to them what they have, because what they have is beyond measure in terms of value, beyond measure. Jennifer and I have this church, and Knowledge Mountain Church of Perpetual Genesis. It's a non-denominational teaching church, and it's really designed for people who've been awareness and have come to awareness through dreams, visions, and premonitions. And, I can tell you, typically our members are people who have been kicked out of more churches and more study groups than they can remember because they ask questions that were not on the thou shalt only ask questions on this list. And so we're working with... That's a small
list too, by the way.
Oh, it's really, really small.
You have like 5 questions you can ask, and that's about it.
5 questions. And I think it's case sensitive, but...
Big time.
Big time. So I want them to know that they're not alone, but I want them to have hope for the future, because they're just sitting there in this isolation paralysis. And that's the best way I can explain it, isolation and paralysis. And it's an awful, awful place for them to be, just awful, because it's a hopeless situation. They can't unsee the dreams, visions, and premonitions they've had. They know what's coming. And there's no way you're going to, bully them out of it. And they know that there's no way that they can, get themselves to where it's not a part of their thinking process anymore. You can booze it, sex it, drug it. I don't care what you do. What you've had in dreams, visions, and premonitions, sticks to you. And like white to rice. And you're not going to get rid of it. And so it's an awful place for them to be. So what I'm really saying to them now is saying, look, what is your awareness really all about? Because you're looking at it from the consumer standpoint as a negative, because you don't have family, you don't have money, you don't have bunkers, you don't have beans, you don't have bullets, you don't have this, that, and the other thing because you're in awareness. But on the other hand, because you've had the dreams, visions, and premonitions, you're a soothsayer, someone who can foretell or see the future. Now, that's not to say that they can say Billy Bob is going to marry Betty Sue on Christmas Day next year. That's fortune telling. When you're a soothsayer, you are able to project into the future, and you can see things that are going to come. But also because these people have been in awareness since they were children, they really do not understand how valuable they are. Now, just to illustrate the point, when people join our church, there's a questionnaire they have to fill out. And one of the questions is I asked them to watch my video, The 5 Stages of Catastrophism, and then to tell us what stage they're in. Now, the stages of catastrophism are, I don't have time for this crap, oh crap, share the crap, crap happens, and the universe is unfolding as it should. When you get to stage 5, you've made peace with it, and you're ready to flow with it. Doesn't mean you're not going to be saddened by it, but it means that you have gotten to the point where you have embraced the destiny for whatever it's going to be so that you can work within it calmly and competently. And for people, this takes a long time. The interesting thing is the people that apply to our church, only a third of them are in stage 5. The rest are in stage 4. And stage 4 is just resignation. You finally get to the point where you make peace with your isolation and you just stop talking to your friend, to everybody about what you're seeing, because you're tired of, getting mocked and ridiculed and people acting like complete and utter jerks. It really brings out the worst in them, because unfortunately, this is a topic that hits a deep racial memory of things falling out of the sky and leaving a mark, so to speak. So what I'm trying to say to them is, look, I want you to live. I not only want you to live, I want you to make a difference for our species. Because if you don't have a good reason to get up in the morning and put your boots on, then what's the point? You're just going to keep going to bed every night saying, dear God, I'm tired of it. Take me in my sleep. And finally, one night, God maybe just does that out of exasperation. So it's having something worth fighting for, something that, makes the sacrifice worth it. I mean, my God, that's the reason why men and women in World War II faced terrible, terrible, terrible situations, because they were doing it for home, for family, for country, for noble reasons, that their lives made a difference, that they were fighting a terrible evil. And so what I see happening is that right now we're in what I call the conjecture phase. People go, well, maybe this, well, maybe that, well, maybe the other. And, in the classic, the machismo stuff, well, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, or I don't know about this. Let's see how it develops. And then my all-time favorite, well, if it does happen, I just want to be at ground zero and die. So this is all machismo. This is all just nonsense. When we're all looking up in the sky and we're all seeing this stuff coming in, people are going to be pooping their pants. They're going to have fear clutching at their throat. Not because of what they see, but because they realize they're not ready for what they see. And that is what is going to terrify them. Now, this is a time when you're going to start seeing a tremendous amount of organization. People will come together. People will organize to deal with this. And the ones that are going to be the most successful, in my mind, are faith-based organizations. They're going to have the advantage because, one, they have an existing chain of command that's respected. Yeah, all things are political, but they have a chain of command. And they have a succession process that everyone agrees to. Second thing is that nonprofits are better than for-profits at rapid mobilization of assets and logistics. It could take them 30 years to build a library, but it takes them 3 days to ramp up to deal with a natural disaster. And third, they have a diversity of skill sets. This is really important. And so what I'm trying to say to the folks that are in awareness and lamenting their isolation, and they're going, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm in paralysis. I talk to them all the time. And I don't respond now because I'm disgusted with them. I respond now because I love them. I want them to have meaning, purpose. I want them to survive. I want their families to survive. And that's the reason why I wrote this book. It's a bridging tool for them because, I have people join my church and they've gone through the 5 stages of catastrophism. They're only in stage 4. And that took them 2 decades to get to stage 4. Imagine what in the heck's going to happen when all of a sudden people have to go through this same process, not in 5 decades, but in 5 weeks. The compression, and on top of being faced with the horror of what is coming, will be simply overwhelming. But for the people who have been in awareness since they were children, here's where they become immensely useful to these communities and to the leadership of these communities because they're going to be calm. They will be the eye of the storm. You have Matthew rolling up into Florida right now, and the eye of the storm is quiet. You get into this, you get past the storm wall, everything's going every which way sideways. And that's the same way to describe what the human condition is going to be when everything is going sideways. You're going to have, folks just acting crazy because survival fear turns people into pathological liars. They'll do anything, they'll say anything, and they'll do things that maybe they would regret on a calmer day. But it's just going to bring out the worst behavior because they're in this compression and they're panicked. But for the people who've been in awareness since they were children, who've had to process through this coming grief, it's a different thing. They're the eye of the storm. And so when I wrote the book, I wrote it with 3 aims. First is I wrote the book thinking about faith-based leaders who all of a sudden have to take decades of assimilation and compress it into a matter of a few weeks. And I wanted to relay to them a phenomenal amount of information on a leadership scale. But I wanted to do that in a way that it would help them, it would ease them in, to do it with a gentle hand. And so the book is written very different than all my other books, which were actually much easier for me to write. This was a very difficult book for me to write because it follows a storyline and it's in second person conversational. And what I literally do is I take the reader and turn the reader into a leading character in the book so that they can become engaged. And they can become part of it instead of it being an arm's length experience. And at that point, there's a huge volume of information in the book. It's 432 pages and, and 142 color graphics. It's an it's an all color book and it's 8 by 10. It's a big, big book. But I also knew that going from this is that the people are doing that even in the compression, they are going to be getting hit from every side with people coming up with all kinds of half-cocked, crazy harebrained ideas, which is what's going to happen. And they're trying to sort through all of this because they've got to make calm decisions about what they're going to do in their communities. They don't have a heck of a lot of time to do it. So for my folks who've been in awareness and have come to awareness through dreams, visions, and premonitions, I want them to acknowledge that, yes, they are soothsayers. They're oracles, the peers. Their job is to be teachers, mentors, and comforters. And so what they do is they are looking at the possibilities out there. The folks that would have that they're head of a faith-based organization and could quickly organize 100 or more people into a community. And then they can go to the leadership of that organization and offer their services as a soothsayer, as someone who has seen the future. This is a very valuable thing. And what is going to make them immediately obvious as a key asset to the leaders will be their calmness. See, they've processed through all this stuff. They've had the sleepless nights of thinking it through. They've been there, they've done that. And they did it during a time when they weren't under pressure. Only, that is, from their family and friends who have been mocking and ridiculing them incessantly. And that adversity is good. There's an article on my site, all right, Awareness in the Eye of the Storm. And your listeners might want to read that, those that are in awareness. And so what I did was I wrote it, and by doing it in second person conversational, I was not only making it easier for a faith-based leader to assimilate the immense amount of knowledge that I put in the book. And it's not the kind of knowledge that me and mine preppers are going to want. I want my little bunker where my little family and I can go with our AR-15s and be badasses. Well, no.
Dang
I don't
it.
care. Dang it. Yeah, I don't care if you spent, $20,000 or $2 million. You got a flawed strategy that's going to get you killed.
Right.
Because there's going to be Mad Max types. Oh, baby. They're going to be there. Then cannibals and all the worst sorts. We're going to go through those for a few years. And you know who they're going to look for? They're going to look for the little me and mine preppers out there. And, they're going to have all kinds of provisions and guns and whatever. And they're just going to lay in wait and take them out. Maybe even eat them. All right. But you got a community of 100 people. And maybe in that community, you've got a half a dozen former military, police, firefighters, paramedics, people who know what they're doing. That community is going to have an organized defense, going to be a damn hard target. And so they're not going to mess with the hard targets. They're just going to go after the little bunker bunnies, as I call them. And these people have spent a couple of $1 million thinking, oh, I'm clever. I got a 2-year supply of organic MREs, and I'm going to sit there and eat warm organic MREs, watching The Sound of Music from my underground hot tub, and, while everyone else. Well, at some point they're going to have to come up to ground to forage, and guess what? Some nasty is going to smell their healthy body from about a mile away, and then they're going to die very badly. So, I don't bother talking to them, and there's enough people that do, so fine. I'm talking to the communities that I think are going to have the greatest chance of success. And that will be faith-based organizations that have morphed into spiritually and enlightened communities where people pull together. And it's in service to others. And they understand it's not about holding on to things. It's about holding on to each other. And so, by reading the book, I'm not trying to entertain people who are in awareness. I'm showing them, here is how you can talk with people who are in awareness compression. That's what I'm trying to convey to them. To give them that skill, to show them how to have the kinds of conversations they're going to have that are going to make them valuable. And if they are valuable to these communities, and they're always going, what do I do about my loved ones? If the leadership of a community sees you as a valuable asset, as a soothsayer, a mentor, a teacher, a comforter, that you have this role that you bring a sense of calm, you are the eye of the storm. And you say, can my family join me? They're going to say, well, of course. And what did it cost you? Did you have to go out and buy any rifles, bullets, beans, build a bunker? No. What you did was you took the gift that God has given you with your dreams, visions, and premonitions, which is the greatest gift you could possibly imagine. It is beyond measure. You cannot put a dollar amount on it. And the years that you have spent thinking about it and being browbeaten and pummeled by your family has hardened you. It's like the process of making a samurai sword. They fold the steel and they pound it, fold it again, pound it, fold it again, pound it. In the process of layering the steel and the pounding is forcing the impurities out. And what you have is something that's an amazing weapon. And so it is this forging process that has made you incredibly valuable. And so that is what I'm trying to say to people who are in awareness. Step to the plate, see the wonderful gift that is within you, that God has given you. See it for what it is, as a gift, not as a curse. And understand that there will come a time when you will be immensely valued by people who are thrown into the sudden crisis mode of awareness compression. And so the book is a bridging tool. And on the back of the book, what I do is I give people the strategy. And the strategy is extremely simple. Let me just read it for you. This is on the back of the book. For those in awareness, know this. You are in awareness because God intends for you to be a part of the solution. Your role is to be a mentor, a comforter, and a teacher during the tribulation. Read and study this book thoroughly to prepare yourself for your true mission. Then, when a spiritual leader you admire and respect is seeing the same clear and present danger that you are, your path is simple. Hand that leader this book as you say. You need a plan, and this is the plan that will work for what is coming. Please read it. And if you have any questions, I am always at your service. That's it. That's the whole plan.
Well, that's a good plan.
Thank you. Thank you. And, and I don't offer it to people an awareness with a service to self things like, okay, here's how you're going to take care of you and screw everybody else. No, let the clever bunker bunnies who think that, they know better, let them do that. Maybe they can entertain the cannibals enough to, get their freedom. But they're going to be facing it. They're a food source. They are. These people are going to be a food source. But for the ones that have the awareness, the ones that acknowledge their gift, and they start thinking, okay, let's change my paradigm. Instead of seeing myself as an isolated and lonely victim of my own awareness, let's flip that around. Let's turn the lemon, as they say, into lemonade. And that's what I'm trying to do, because these are the people that are really going to be able to make a difference, not only for the communities that they serve, but for humanity as a whole. They have an essential role. We are facing, and what I'm going to be talking about in this video I'm going to be bringing out shortly, is the Luciferian agenda, as I call it. Because the people who run this world from the shadows are Luciferian. And their plan is eminently simple. Well, first thing they want to do is muddy the water so people cannot get a clear beat on things. That's the reason why you see all of these trolls and hoax videos on Planet X, disinformation, misinformation, misdirection, you name it. All right. They make everything as clear as mud. I call them the mudslingers. And so these are people like, classic cases. Whether they do it wittingly or unwittingly doesn't matter, but a mudslinger is a mudslinger. One of them is like a guy by the name of Dazza the cameraman. All right. And this guy's got Luciferian agenda tattooed to his forehead, which is muddy the waters. And when you muddy the waters, people can't get a clear beat on things, Rex. And if they can't get a clear beat on things, they wind up in stagnation. Paralysis sets in. They don't do anything. And that's exactly what the Luciferians want. They want to prevent people from not being able to shake off the mud that they're throwing at them. And I will tell you, we're all standing knee deep in this mud. It's so thick, forget building a house on it. You're not going to get a level floor, let alone something that won't collapse. So the fact is, yeah, we're all in this mud together. That's not the problem, Rex. The problem is when people don't want to get out of the mud. That's the problem. Because if they don't want to get out of the mud and think for themselves and take their own counsel, then they're going to lose precious time. And we're close to that last window of opportunity when people can really come together and make a big difference. And that's what the Luciferians want, is for folks to waste that. So that, what do? They keep sitting where they're at, which most Americans live along coastlines. And coastlines are not going to do well. For God's sakes, the governor of Florida is saying, people, there's no good reason you shouldn't get out of Florida. The governor of the state is telling people, maybe you need to get out of Florida.
Geez, I missed that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they are absolutely beside themselves. They would like to see their, Floridians get out of there, go on up to other states in the South, and then after things settle down, come back home. But they want to get them to safety. They want to get them out of harm's way. All right. And that's really important. But the Luciferians, they don't want that. They don't have that compassion. They want people to die. Real simple reason. If they can reduce the population of the earth by 90%, and if you think that's, a nonsense goal, go Google the Georgia Guidestones. All right. It's written in 8 languages. Ten Commandments, so to speak, for the 21st century. And the first one is keep population under 500 million. They just don't say how to do it. But if they get the population of the world significantly reduced because people are slogging through the Luciferian mud and can't figure out what to do until it's too late, and there are long coastlines and they're going to die in huge numbers, then what you have is not that many people left standing when things start settling down. And that's when they're going to come up from their underground bunkers and they're going to say, look, we got food, medicine, seeds, construction materials. We got everything you need to get started all over again. Looky what we brung you. There's a catch. You got to play by our rules and you got to take the chip. All right. And the thing is, that's how they're going to take their dominance, their control of the planet from a pre-tribulation position to a post-tribulation position. But first they have to reduce the population because they only have so many trinkets to bribe us with. And if you have 7 billion people or 6 billion people or 5 billion people that are alive, what they got's going to go pretty fast. But if you got 500 million people, now that's a significant offer. That puts things in a different perspective. So that's the game that they're playing. And, if with Knowledge Mountain Church of Perpetual Genesis, we have 3 precepts that really guide the mission of the church. And it's what we do for others. And it's very simple. Self-sufficiency, knowledge, hope for the future, and knowing you're not alone. Those are the 3 things. That's it. That's all you do. If you do that, people love freedom. Been fighting and dying for it for as long as we can remember. And I don't see any reason why they're not going to keep on doing that now. And if they have self-sufficiency, knowledge, hope for the future, and they know they're not alone, then what comes natural is going to happen. And these people are going to call the bluff that these elites are running. And enough of them are going to stand up and say, no, thank you. And they're going to know they're not saying no to the carrot. They're going to be saying no to the stick, and it's going to hurt. But they're going to be ready to pay that price. And you're always going to have that. You're always going to have those courageous few who are ready to pay the price. The American Revolution, and we tend to think of it that the whole country rose up. No. 2/3 of the country either sat on the sidelines or helped the British. It was 1/3 of the country that stood up for freedom. All right. So you don't need an overwhelming majority. You just need enough people for a critical mass. And so if the people who are in awareness are helping their communities to maintain a grip on their noble values, to have hope for the future, to know they're not alone, and to live in the hope of having a Star Trek future for themselves and for their progeny, that age of enlightenment that prophecy tells us we're entitled to. But, the ancients don't tell us that we're going to get it for free. It's ours. But we're going to have to claim it, and we're going to have to pay the price to do that. And that, for me, is the real role of the soothsayers, because they're going to understand what's really at stake. They're not going to be swayed by the Luciferian propaganda machines. They're going to know what they know, and they're going to stick by it, and they're not going to be manipulated into selling themselves or the communities they're in service to short. And so that was the reason why I wrote the book. That was what was in my mind when I did it. I'm not trying to entertain people. What I'm giving is a bridging tool. That's what the book is. It's a bridging tool. It's someone who is in a horrible situation of deep compression into awareness can sit down with and have a peaceful moment as they assimilate a huge amount of knowledge that's necessary for them as leaders. It is also a tool for those in awareness to not only create value for themselves because they can sit down and calmly help those leaders to understand fully what they're reading in my book. It's someone to talk to about it. Not someone who goes, well, gee, I don't know. I'm just as scared as you are. No, that leader's going to have they can sit down, go through the book, and talk about it. And that person who's been in awareness all their life is going to be able to understand intimately what that leader is going through and how to comfort that person so that they can, in a calm and deliberate way, make the best possible decisions they can for the benefit of the communities they lead. And that's it. I'm just, the book is a bridge. It's not an entertainment piece. And, that's the long and the short of it.
That's great. And one of the things that I was hoping to ask before we close out tonight, and I know that you've got a lot going on, so I certainly appreciate your time that you're spending with us at the Leak Project. There is a huge drill going on right now in Russia, and I find it interesting that these drills started in 2012, and that's about the time Planet X really started to make its scene in the skies, etc. Now, there's over 40 million people involved in these Russian drills. You're going to have 50,000 vehicles in the drill, 200,000 rescue professionals, and it's a pretty big deal. Do you think that this could have possibly something to do with Planet X or maybe nuclear war?
Well, I think that the Russians are, they're preparing. I did business in Russia for many years. I had a travel business. And I did individual tours and small groups, custom itineraries. And I handled Russia and also the former Soviet states. And I'm impressed with what the Russians are doing for their people. Other countries are doing very good for their people, like Sweden. Sweden has enough bunker space for every one of its natural citizens. All right. They don't talk about it. They don't want to start scaring people and creating a panic and getting things off the track. And we're seeing a lot of saber rattling right now about the possibility of some sort of limited nuclear exchange. And I'm really sad to see it. I sure hope to God it's not going to happen. But I think that the Russians they're doing a much better job. They care more about their people than our government cares about us. Our government is buying bullets and coffins, and they're building shelters.
Well, and also you look at Russia as far as not allowing genetically modified foods in the country and stuff that people out here make millions of dollars on at the corporate levels. It's just another thing that says, you can tell they seem to care a lot more about the overall archetype of their citizens or people that are a part of that country.
Yes. America, our government was stolen from us. We don't have an our government anymore. The corporatists, the globalists, just in general, I just refer to them now as the Luciferians. And
the dialect.
The dialect.
We are the dialect.
We are the dialect. And because what they're doing just has nothing to do with, any compassion. It has nothing to do with what the Bible teaches us. And, like I said, it was another time Jennifer and I, back in 2015, we crossed the country together and driving. And when we got to Reno, she said, I saw more American flags on the side of the chemical plants than I did on T-shirts. And we went past some pretty important landmarks in America. So I think a lot of people overseas have a great respect for the American people, but they despise our government, our banking system, and these other predatory mechanisms. And we are, we are in our descendancy is about the best way to say it. You look at the international banking system that the Chinese want to lead. What they're saying to other countries is, here's IMF and here's World Bank, and business as usual with them as they come in, make loans to your dictators. Then we steal your resources for pennies on the dollars, and then we build military bases and rape your women and turn them into showgirls. And then you have the Chinese that come in and say, okay, be part of our banking system, and it's a win-win. We want you to like doing business with us. And whether the Chinese do that or not, the message is very compelling for a world that is really tired of what's being done in the name of our nation. And it's just all on the verge of implosion. The Band-Aids they're slapping Band-Aids on it as fast as they can go. I look at the elections, and like I said, I watch Hillary and I watch Trump, and all I hear is John Belushi screaming food fight. But this will pass. All of this is going to pass. At that point, politics are going to be more on the local level. And I think John Forsyth wrote an excellent book, One Second After. And Newt Gingrich wrote a foreword to it, I believe. I read that book, and it was just really, really superb. I think if you read that, it's going to give you a very good idea of what life is going to be like in a tribulation world. With one caveat is that, for him, the federal government reorganizes and tries to do something effective. I don't know that our government is going to be able to reorganize and do that. I think people are just like ancient Rome. They're just going to look at the barbarians and go that away to Rome. We're finished with it. We've lost faith in it. We may do something else. We may reorganize in different ways. We're a good nation. We're a good people. We have our problems. Every nation does. But I still believe that we have a fundamental belief system that is excellent. I think at the local level, we're going to see local governments are going to want to uphold the ideals in the Constitution. We're not going to. The elites have flushed it down the toilet. The rest of the country hasn't.
And that's the thing, is you certainly look at people as far as their actions go, not where they come from, what nationality they are, what skin color they have, etc. And I think that's super important. So I really appreciate you spending time with us, Marshall. Thank you so much. And also, our audience certainly appreciates it. If you enjoy this presentation, folks, I would strongly recommend you go to www YOWUSA.com, where you can listen to a large archive of Marshall Masters interviews, access hundreds of articles, and the latest news on Planet X. Pick up your copy of Surviving the Planet X Tribulation, Being in It for the Species, the Colburn Bible. And I also wanted to give an honorable mention to Jeff from myozarkhomestead.com, who is literally being the change he wants to see. He's a big fan of Marshall Masters, and he has a cutting-edge, totally affordable opportunity to be a part of a beautiful landscape in Missouri, have access to your own homestead that is prepared for surviving and thriving during and after a SHTF scenario of almost all skills. So beyond bunkers, as Jeff says. This has been just an honor, Marshall. It's always great to speak with you. Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Rex. Thank you.
Absolutely, and certainly enjoy your trip to Colorado.
Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Absolutely. And we always have a good time.
Fantastic. And folks, also subscribe to youtube.com/clandestine time lord, become a contributing member at leakproject.com, help support Leak Project, and be the change you want to see. This is Rex Bear. Good night.